What's up guys, it's Fulton Taylor and welcome back for another edition of Taylor Tech Review. We got lots of great info for you today. We got news, we got leaks, we got rumors, but what we don't have are benchmarks because Intel says they're bad. Wait, what happened Intel? What happened to those real world benchmarks? If you guys are wondering what's up, let's get started. So the big story today is Intel suddenly saying, don't bother benchmarking anymore, it's not important. Instead, we should focus on how tech helps humanity. It's for the children. In a recent Computex interview, Intel CEO Bob Swan said, "We should see this moment as an opportunity to shift our focus as an industry from benchmarks to the benefits and impacts of the technology we create," he said. The pandemic has underscored the need for technology to be purpose-built so it can meet these evolving business and consumer needs. And this requires a customer-obsessed mindset to stay close, anticipate those needs, and develop solutions. In this mindset, the goal is to ensure we are optimizing for a stronger impact that will support and accelerate positive business and societal benefits around the globe. There is so much hypocrisy and BS flying around in that statement that I need hip waders because, man, it's getting deep. This all comes just 9 months after Intel's big push for real-world benchmarking. And while the 10900K is king in gaming by about 7%, it loses, the whole Intel 10th Gen series loses in the price performance market in pretty much every segment, and most definitely in power usage. We'll cover that a little bit later. I'm sure this has nothing to do with AMD taking the performance crown in server, HEDT, the price performance crown for desktop, the CPU and GPU performance crown in laptops, it also wouldn't have anything to do with the 3600, 3800, and 3900 XT refreshes coming out in July, or Zen 3 this fall. We should all trust that huge multi-mega billion-dollar corporation that knows what's best for us. They would never, ever lie to us. If you don't believe me, just ask their friends over at Principal Technologies. Link in the description. Sorry, Intel, I'm not drinking that Kool-Aid. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. In other news, Intel has discontinued the Coffee Lake CPUs, which offered up to 6 cores and 12 threads and came out in 2017 to fight Ryzen. It's not hard to imagine why they're being discontinued at this point. Without hyper-threading in most of the lineup, the CPU wars have left them behind. Meanwhile, Video Cards has come out with some leaked benchmarks, if we're allowed to still say that word, benchmarks, on Intel's new Ice Lake server CPUs. These are the 24-core, 48-thread versions, and granted, this is an early engineering sample, but judging by some comparisons on Geekbench to AMD's 7402 24-core, 48-thread EPYC chip, Intel's got a little more work to do. Intel has released a data sheet for the true power usage on their 10th gen CPUs, and yeah, it's pretty much as bad as we all expected. Just in case you guys weren't aware, Intel's TDP values are actually for the base clock, not the boost clock. And the chart shows the Intel 10900K pulling literally 250 watts, which is twice its rated TDP. It also shows how long the chip can stay boosted at that power usage before it has to throttle back down to cool off. WCCF Tech has also found some 3D Mark results for Intel's upcoming 8-core, 16-thread Rocket Lake desktop CPU. The chip showing a base clock of 3.2 gigahertz and it's boosting to 4.3 gigahertz. Now, according to the benchmarks, the Rocket Lake CPU is slower than an i5 8600K, but since this is a very early engineering sample, I expect this to improve significantly. There's no way Intel would release a chip that's slower than something from 2 generations ago. just got to give this one time, people. And lots of time is what we may have, because Tom's Hardware has found some slides from an Intel presentation in Asia, and it's showing no new processors for HEDT, desktop, or H-series laptops coming out in the rest of 2020. Now, this is a partner presentation, so it's entirely possible that Intel has left some things off of it. For one thing, it does not list the U-series laptop processors, just the H-series. But it is entirely possible that we may not see much new from Intel other than some very low power Tiger Lake laptop chips for the rest of 2020. In more bad news for Intel, it looks like Apple is planning to file for divorce. Bloomberg is reporting that the long-rumored plans from Apple to produce their own CPUs for their Mac PCs is about to bear fruit. Yeah, you see what I did there. That was bad. The report says that starting next year, Apple will be using its own ARM-based CPUs in their Macs. Now, Apple has for years had some of the fastest CPUs for their mobile phones, so it's going to be interesting to see what they can pull out for their Mac laptops and desktop line. And the bad news for Intel just keeps on going, because there have been yet more security flaws found in their chips. This latest round of attacks are once again attacking the SGX feature in Intel CPUs and allowing attackers to steal passwords and encryption keys directly from memory. The new SGX attacks are called SGAX and Crosstalk, and work similarly to the meltdown attacks from 2018. Our last bit of Intel news today comes from Video Cards and the Twitter AppySack, who has found benchmark results for Intel's developer-only DG1 graphics card based on their Z architecture. Now, you're not going to be buying this thing on Amazon or Newegg. It is developer-only. But once you see the performance numbers, you'll understand why, because it is slower than a Radeon 560 or GeForce 1050 Ti. So just put this thing out of your head right now and wait for the DG2, and let's see what Intel can do for the next generation. In AMD news, we finally have official confirmation from AMD that Big Navi will be coming out this fall, and it will be coming out before the next generation consoles are released. AMD's CFO Devinder Kumar recently took part in the Bank of America Securities Global Technology Conference and was quoted as saying, "We remain on track to launch our next generation Zen 3 CPUs and RDNA 2 GPUs in late 2020. Devinder also stated, one of the things on the gaming side is there's a lot of excitement for Navi 2, or what our fans have dubbed as the Big Navi. This will be our first RDNA 2 base product. Now, Big Navi is a Halo product. Enthusiasts love to buy the best, and we are certainly working on giving them the best. The RDNA 2 architecture goes through the entire stack. It will go from mainstream GPUs all the way up to the enthusiasts, and then the architecture also goes into the game console products, as well as into our integrated APU products." Now, this is confirmation that we won't just be seeing Big Navi this fall, but we're also going to be getting RDNA 2 based replacements for the 5500, 5600, and 5700 series chips. Now, RDNA 2 is AMD's first DirectX 12 Ultimate certified GPU architecture, which means it's required to have certain features like DirectX ray tracing, variable rate shaders, mesh shading. It's going to be really interesting this fall to see whose take on ray tracing is better, AMD's or NVIDIA's. We've heard rumors that Ampere's ray tracing performance may be quadruple what it is on Turing, but for AMD it's still a complete unknown. We haven't seen any rumors on the performance of their ray tracing. So it's going to be interesting this fall watching the shootout to see whose design is better. We've also got some really cool new NVIDIA Ampere leaks. We've gotten what appear to be legitimate leaked pictures of the GeForce RTX 3080 Founders Edition cooler, which I gotta say, this thing looks pretty freaking cool. It's a dual fan design with one fan on each side of the car is set up in a push-pull configuration to maximize airflow. German site Igor's lab has managed to find some details on the GA102 chip that will power the GeForce RTX 3090, 3080, and 3070. These cards look like beasts. NVIDIA seriously does not want AMD to take the performance crown, even if they have to push 350 watts through the cards to do it. Now, I don't personally care who wins the performance crown for the GPUs because the consumers are the real winners. You and I win. Seriously, guys, competition is so important. Just look at what it's done in the CPU space. In 2 years, we went from 4 cores to 16 cores, and I want that same kind of competition back in the GPU space. Even if we don't get lower prices from it, at the very least, we can get more performance for our dollar. Bigger boosts for each generation because there's 2 guys slugging it out and not one person coasting for the win. And last but not least, Epic Games CEO Tim Sweeney has confirmed that the Unreal Engine 5 will not work on a Commodore 64. Sorry guys, it's time to upgrade. At least you'll have some good GPU and CPU choices this fall. All right, time to change gears a little bit here. With the whole planet headed somewhere tropical in a handbasket, we're going to talk a little bit about ways to make what's left of it a better place. A new study from Durham University has found a way to make plastic out of waste organic material and CO2 captured from power plants. The study concluded that it could be commercially viable despite higher prices for the PEF plastic it creates, because the PEF plastic is stronger than the PET plastic normally used, so you need less plastic to make the same material. Here's a nice simple diagram of the process to make this plastic. I'm sure you guys can figure it out, make this stuff in your garage. It's pretty much Mr. Wizard's supermarket science, I think. You guys probably don't get that. You're probably all way too young. Meanwhile, over in Germany, they have passed a $160 billion recovery bill that will require, amongst other things, all gas stations to offer electric car charging. Props to Germany for this, for getting a head start on electrification. I wish more of this was happening in the US too, but at least Tesla is still building out their supercharger network. Now, if only I could actually afford one. Love one, can't afford it. Well, if you watched this far and you're still bored, sorry, I've got more boring news for you. Because after a year's worth of digging, Elon Musk's The Boring Company has completed the second tunnel for its underground people mover system at the Las Vegas Convention Center. They're now working on the buildings that cover the entrances to the tunnel, and it should be finished and ready for use by CES next January. Just 4 days after SpaceX's historic Crew Dragon mission, a Falcon 9 rocket lifted off from Florida carrying another 60 Starlink satellites, bringing the total up to around 480 or so. The second stage placed them into orbit, while the first stage returned to Earth and landed on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. This was the second time SpaceX has flown a first stage for the 5th time, and it's the first successful landing of a 5th flight. During the first attempt in March, the Falcon 9 suffered an engine failure on the way to orbit. While the mission was successful, it did get its payload to orbit. Despite the shutdown of one of the engines, the first stage failed to make the drone landing. SpaceX later traced the problem to a solution used to clean the engine between flights. NASA has already approved SpaceX to use flight-proven boosters for future crewed missions. SpaceX recently prepared its latest Starship prototype called SN4 for a static fire test in Boca Chica, Texas. The Raptor engine appeared to fire normally for a couple of seconds during its test, then shut down as planned. Then about a minute later, there was some sort of gas leak, and then about a minute after that, the rocket exploded in a seriously impressive, rapid, unscheduled disassembly. Elon Musk later explained that there was a problem with a quick disconnect at the launch site that caused the gas leak, which led to the explosion. Now, just the other day, an internal email from Musk was recently leaked to CNBC, which stated, please consider the top SpaceX priority, apart from anything that could reduce drag and return risk, to be Starship. So we're probably going to continue to see more Starship prototypes rapidly disassembling themselves as SpaceX engineers work out the bugs. And that's going to wrap things up for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, I'd appreciate it if you guys would smash that like and subscribe button, because it really does help with the YouTube algorithm. Until next time, see you then.